All right, I guess I can start. Good evening, everyone. My name is Abhishek Jain, and I'm pleased to invite you all to the first episode of the Master of Fine Arts or the MFA series by Planty. Towards the end of this session, we will also be having a Q&A session for which I would request you all to put your questions in the live chat box. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us Aakanksha Aggarwal, a graduate of the 2016 batch of the National Institute of Fashion and Technology at Delhi, or NIFT from Delhi, after which she also went on to pursue her Master of Fine Arts, or the MFA degree in Design and Technology from the Parsons School of Design in 2019. She's currently working as a visual designer at 2U. In this session, Aakanksha will be speaking in detail on the application process to the Parsons School of Design, as well as the opportunities available both during and after completing an MFA from the Parsons School of Design. I would now like to hand it over to Aakanksha to begin the session.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I think this is such a wonderful initiative. And a big hello to everybody who's watching this. I'm really excited to talk to all of you. And I'm just going to present my screen now. Right, so what you see on the screen is my journey in the field of design. And as you can see, it's pretty meandering. There are a lot of things that I tried doing or that I've done in the past. So when I was in 10th or 11th grade, I was studying to be a doctor. And it wasn't because I was particularly passionate about medicine, but it was more because I was very confused. I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. My best friends were all studying to be doctors, and I thought that was a good enough reason to be pursuing medicine. But those 2 years were absolutely terrible. I hated every second of it. And, once I got done with my school, I remember giving all the possible entrance exams. So I gave law and architecture and engineering and medicine. And on my mom's insistence, I also gave the design entrance at NIFT, which is the National Institute of Fashion Technology. And that's where I got through. And I started at this program called knitwear design. And to those of you who are unfamiliar with knitwear, it's basically a kind of fabric. So I learned, the basics of fabric construction, the basics of garment construction. I learned about design for the first time. What does the design process actually mean? I learned about user research, about prototyping. And so it was very wonderful. And, I loved that there was this element of craftsmanship in the process. And craft is something that I've always enjoyed doing, ever since I was a child. But at the end of my 4-year degree, I felt that something was lacking. That, textiles, it's inherently a very visual medium. It's very aesthetic. You do everything that is on the surface. And I longed to find a more meaningful application for the design process. So in my final year of undergrad, I did this project, which was called Adaptive Lingerie for the Elderly. And that was inspired by sort of seeing my grandmother struggle with clasping and unclasping her bra every morning. And so I sort of designed these alternate versions of how a bra could be that could help a person with mobility issues in, wearing it or sort of removing it more easily. And I remember, working on that project, it was almost as if something clicked in place. And I knew that, I wanted to do something more with design. So then I decided to work for a while, but then again, my heart wasn't in it. And finally, I took the plunge and I decided to go to Parsons School of Design, where I trained as a creative technologist. So to those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, a creative technologist is somebody who uses technology as a tool, right? Who combines design and technology together. So I'll speak more about this when I talk about my experience at Parsons. But again, this was a very interesting experience where I learned a lot. I collaborated with very talented individuals. And, I discovered that to me, it's very important that my work be led by values. Once I graduated, I then interned as an editorial designer at CNN. So what I was doing was I was working with the design team to work at the website and the mobile app, and to make sure that the experiences are user-friendly and as engaging as possible. And then finally, right now, I am working with this company called 2U as a designer in the edtech space. And what we do is we design content for adult learners who want to transition from their jobs into a different job. And 2U recognizes that there is a skills gap at the moment, right? There is a gap between what is being taught in universities and what you need to do a job. So it's structured in such a way that people are prepared for the jobs that they do. So one of the reasons that, I took you through my journey was to tell you that, sometimes there isn't a clear-cut path in design, right? Sometimes it's through the process of discovery that you realize, that these are the things that I like and these are the things that I don't like. So if you're somebody who's confused, if you're somebody who doesn't know what they want to do, it's completely okay, right? You have time to figure it out, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to figure it out. And I just say, that do internships, take on as much work as you can do, produce different variety of work in different domains, and eventually you will get closer to work that excites you and work that you want to be doing. So I'm assuming that, if you're watching this, you're probably questioning, whether you should do an MFA, right? Or maybe you're just confused about what are the next steps. And I just want to equip you with 2 tools that you might know about, but that you might not apply, that you might not use as much as you should be using. The first tool is Google, right? We all know Google, we all love Google, but I would just say leverage the power of Google. It is so helpful, right? It collects information from all across the world. It gives you access to so many resources. So I will say that, research relentlessly. Be very, very thorough in your research. So if you are considering an MFA program or just a master's program, look at the colleges, right? Look at colleges across the globe. Don't restrict yourself to any one particular part of the world, right? Look at colleges all over. Look at different courses, right? So see, what are the courses that are being offered? What are the corresponding skills that you will gain in the process of doing the course? Research the faculty. And this can be especially important if, you want to go into academia or research, or if you're interested in a niche field. So having a faculty whose work you like, or having a faculty with a particular industry experience that you want to work with, can actually influence your choice of the program or your choice of the university. I also say that, research the alumni. See who has gone to that particular college, who has done that course before you. And this is really important because, it's not about just the master's. It's not about the 1 or the 2 years that you spend studying. It's what comes after. So look at the alumni, see what kind of work are they doing? Which companies are they working at? What did their career path look like? And this will be very, very useful. And finally, I will say that, you should also research scholarships because, these programs are expensive, and this particular program at Parsons is immensely expensive. So, look at all possible aid. I do know that when you hand in an application to Parsons, it does immediately qualify you for a merit scholarship, which can range from between 15% to 75% of the total tuition. But just in case you don't qualify for that scholarship, you should always keep your options open. A lot of scholarships that are offered to, students from the United States may not be available to you as an international student. So look for scholarships in India, look for scholarships in the domain that you're working in, right? Keep on searching. And the second tool that I'd like to talk about is LinkedIn. And I hope that all of you guys who are watching it right now already have a LinkedIn profile. And if you don't, then I highly recommend making a LinkedIn profile, right? Because LinkedIn is a professional network. It is a professional community, and it has power that you can leverage. It can get you in touch with people. It can introduce you to the way that, they are doing things. And I think that is so helpful. One thing that I would like to say is reach out to people, So during your research, if you come across an alumni who's doing especially interesting work, or if you find a faculty whose research you like, reach out to them and, draft a LinkedIn message. You can sort of, again, Google the ways in which you should draft a message, keep it short, introduce yourself, and, be very specific in why you're reaching out, what you expect out of the chat, right? And then remember that, if you reach out to say 100 people, maybe 20 get back to you, and maybe one of it materializes into a conversation that gives you insight. But trust me, even that 1 out of 100 is completely worth it. So if people don't reach out to you, please don't take it personally. Please don't get disheartened, right? You have to be brave. Like, that's one thing that I've learned, especially for fellow introverts out there, or for people who feel shy or uncomfortable in asking others for their time. Remember, courage is awarded, bravery is rewarded, right? Just be brave, take a plunge, and reach out to people. Now I'll just talk about the admission process and, just some specifics of when to apply and how to apply. So for when to apply, I will say keep an eye out on the dates. As far as I remember, the applications open in November. But again, that can change. So please, go to the website and just see when they open the applications up. I do know that the priority admissions close in early January. So, definitely you should try to hand in your application before January. And thirdly, I'd like to say that the earlier you submit your application, the better. So the way this works is that the applications come in on a rolling basis, right? So suppose Parsons has 100 seats for this particular program, as it does. It's a huge program. But suppose it does have 100 seats. If candidates come in who are qualified, who are suited for the program, then those seats just keep on getting filled. So the earlier you apply, the better chances you have. How should you apply? So again, when you are applying, there are certain things that you will need. The first thing that you need is a portfolio of your most relevant work. So again, as creatives, right, as makers, we enjoy making things. And to a certain extent, we're attached to what we make. I completely understand that impulse, right? We've put in time, energy, and hard work into it. We've put passion, we've put love into our work. But what happens is when you're submitting a portfolio is not a documentation of everything that you've done till date. A portfolio is a way to put your best foot forward, right? So instead of including everything that you've done, right, all the projects that you've made since you were, 5 years old, instead what we're doing is we are picking and choosing our most relevant work, which shows the creative professional that we are today. So I will say, that be a ruthless editor. Leave out anything that is not relevant. And another thing that I would like to say is that for people who come from non-design backgrounds, maybe you don't have a lot of design work in your portfolio. And when I say design work, I mean visual design work, right? Like maybe you don't have beautiful screens, or you don't have illustrations, or you don't have posters, right? And that is okay. The work that Parsons is looking for is more design in terms of design thinking, right? So what they're looking for is for somebody who is passionate about engaging with, the problems in the world, who looks at the things that are happening around them, who is curious, who wants to propose solutions or interventions, right? So just focus on the process. Just focus on how, you identified a problem, how you brainstormed solutions, and how you finally came to, say, one solution that you propose. So again, I'll say choose your most relevant work and show a detailed process and not just the end result, because it's the process, it's the way you think and the way you communicate that matters more. The second thing that you'll need is a resume. And a resume is just a brief 1 or 2 page document which tells us about what you've done, right? So it's just a brief document about you, right? So you can include your education, you can include your work ex, if any. You should include your extracurriculars. So if there are any hackathons that you've been to, if there are any publications to your name, if there are any projects that you've done, any internships experiences, so you should include all of that in your resume. Finally, then you need a statement of purpose. And the statement of purpose is something that helps the admission committee understand you more, right? So who are you as a person? What is your motivation for applying to this course, right? So, the statement of purpose, I will say, is like a balancing act. You do need to get your personality across. You do need to tell them more about who you are, but it's also serving a specific purpose. So for instance, this is a screenshot of the requirements for the statement of purpose as given on the Parsons website. And it has some very specific questions that you have to answer, right? So for instance, here it says you have to outline your reasons for applying to the program. You have to tell them what ways will you contribute to the subject matter. You have to give a thoughtful description of your background, a tentative plan of study or area, your professional goals, and it goes on and on. So you can always come back to this, or you can just go to the website and you can see what the requirements are. But what I'm saying is that, tailor your statement of purpose to what is being asked of you. So for instance, if I ask you today that, what did you make for dinner tonight, right? And you tell me about the last vacation that you had in pre-COVID times to this beautiful hill station where you had a lot of fun with your friends. The point is, no matter how elaborate or, beautiful your language might be and however much fun the vacation sounds like, it's not answering the question, right? So make sure that, your application is tailored to what they're looking for. So if they're looking for certain things in the statement of purpose, make sure that the statement of purpose answers those questions. Then you need 2 letters of recommendation. And again, it depends on whether you have prior work ex or not. For somebody who's fresh out of undergrad, you can definitely get it from 2 professors. If you have more work ex, then I'd say that, you can get 1 from somebody in your university, and then 1 should be from somebody in your workplace who should be able to comment on your work ethic, who should be able to comment on, how you work, how you interact with others. Then you'll also need a TOEFL or an IELTS test. And then again, you should check if there are other English proficiency tests that they take. But at that time, these were the 2 tests that were acceptable. And these are just, to test your basic proficiency in the English language, right? Whether you can read, write, speak English, because the medium of instruction at Parsons is English, right? So all the reading material will be in English. All your assignments will be supposed to be done in English. And the reason that I put an asterisk next to it is because there is a minimum requirement that you have, right? There is a basic threshold that you have for the scores. So as long as you meet that, it's completely okay. And if you feel unsure about your ability to speak in English, I will just say, don't let that hold you back from applying to this program. Parsons is incredibly supportive. If you struggle with English as a language, they have special classes called ESL classes or English as a second language classes, where you meet with a tutor, you meet other fellow students, and you work on building up your language skills, right? What they're most interested in is, again, your work. So as long as, you think like a designer, as long as you're passionate about design and you can talk about your work, it's fine, right? So don't let English or, just being unsure about your ability in English hold you back. And finally, you need official transcripts from your university. So I will say, that collecting all of these things, working on these things, getting feedback takes time. So definitely account for the time that these things will take and make sure that, you have all your application materials and you're not in a rush. Okay, so a lot of times, people ask me whether they should do a master's program. And these are some of the answers that I've heard. And if you are considering doing a master's and these are one of your reasons for doing it, then I will say definitely reconsider. So number 1 is I hate my job, right? So maybe you're a fresh graduate, right? And you just got into the workforce and you started working, and then, suddenly you're in a 9-to-5 job. you don't have holidays, you don't have summer vacation, and you just hate it, right? This is not a good reason to go for a master's. I will say maybe take a break from that job, do alternate internships, change your job, but don't use master's as a way of escaping from the drudgery of your job. The second is I need a break from the real world, right? So again, paying bills and doing work and being accountable isn't really fun, but again, not a good reason. The third is I'm fascinated by that culture. I want to travel. I've always wanted to live there. Not a good reason. So in my opinion, what are some of the good reasons for actually going for a program, and particularly going for this program? One of them is if you want to transition to academia or research. So the MFA degree is a terminal degree. So just as in a lot of other disciplines, you have a PhD. In design, it's the MFA degree, which functions as a PhD. So if you have an MFA degree, you can teach, right? So going to a program like the one at Parsons, it automatically qualifies you to get teaching positions and tenureships in other universities. Also, if you want to transition to research, if you want to work with labs or you want to do more experimental or niche work, then it's a great reason. The second is if you want to transition to a design role from a different industry. And I think a lot of people at Parsons actually do that. So the community at Parsons is a very diverse community, right? You have people from mixed backgrounds coming in. You have architects, you have English majors, you have people who've done psychology and sociology, you have engineers. And the thing that sort of like unites them or binds them together is that, they all have a design mindset, right? They all want to use design to sort of creatively solve problems. And so doing this degree enables them to transition to a different role. And then the last reason is if you want to transition to a different role within design, right? So for instance, one of the very common paths that people take is a lot of times, you work as a UI designer and then you transition to UX and then you finally transition to product design, right? And for a lot of people, these transitions can happen organically while you're working, right? So they might be working in the after hours, they might be working on weekends to hone on their portfolios, they might be doing freelance work, right? So they're basically gaining skills, they're gaining experience and expertise, which lets them do that. But for other people, it's not as easy. For instance, I needed a certain structure, I needed accountability that comes in an academic environment. So, it depends. If you're one of those people who feel like, you want to upskill or you want to transition to a different role within design and you just need some sort of structure to do that, then this might be a good option for you. Okay, so coming to Parsons and how my experience at Parsons was, I think, this experience can be divided into two parts, my experience in New York City and then my experience with Parsons. So I will say that, being in New York City, it was incredibly exciting, though it was very, very intimidating at first because it was my first time leaving the country ever. And suddenly I'm in this place that's, bustling with people. And it was very scary and it was just very new to me. But the more you live in that city, the more you realize that, there is a place for every single person there. And it's very easy to find a creative community, right? And that city, it's bustling with inspiration. So you have so many museums, you have so many galleries, there are talks, there are book unveilings happening all the time, right? So there are new people to meet, new things to do, new things to learn. And so, a large part of my experience in Parsons was also sort of taking inspiration from New York City and sort of taking this attitude of being a learner, and learning something new all the time. And the second was, of course, being at Parsons, which is an amazing design school. So coming to the particular program that I did, the program is called Design and Technology. And as the name suggests, it lies at the intersection of design and technology. So again, it is a super interdisciplinary bunch. You have people from different backgrounds come together. The cohort size is relatively large. So the year that I graduated, we had around 130 people, which is relatively large for a master's program. But I will say, that there are so many things, there are so many courses that are offered that when you sort of go into individual classes, you just have 15 to 20 people per class, which isn't as much. Then coming to courses, I thought this could be interesting to talk about, just in case a few of you were curious about what is actually taught and, what are the things that someone learns when they're doing this particular course. So the 4 courses that I would like to talk about are courses that everybody needs to do, right? Irrespective of the future track that they take. So these are the first 2 courses. You have to do it in the first year, and then the collab classes and the academic electives are sort of scattered across the 2 years. Now, the CC Creativity and Computation Lab is a lab that takes place in the first year, right, in your first semester. So as soon as you get into Parsons, this is actually one of the first things that you do. And it is a really nicely structured lab in the sense that it introduces you to certain tools in your toolkit, right? So it'll introduce you to physical computing, which is basically electronics, and you learn Arduino. So you can, work with basic mechanical interactions. You can sort of prototype and fabricate basic structures. And it's really helpful for people who are interested in interactive installations. And then you also learn to code. So you learn the JavaScript programming language. And then you also learn Unity, which helps you create 3D built environments, right? So again, these seem like very diverse skill sets, and they are, but it's just because, they want to give you a taster of things you can do and things that you can learn. So in case you get very interested in physical computing or, building things with the Arduino, then you do have advanced level classes that you can pursue. But this is just a taster that they want everybody to have, so that, no matter what your background, there's at least something that you know about these little things and that you can integrate into your design process. The second class that, all of us do in that first semester is called D4TC, or Design for the Century. And again, I cannot talk about how much this particular class has influenced my design practice. What this class basically was, it was a series of lectures that different people and different guests do. And they talk about designing at different scales, So for a lot of us who are designing today, we're designing for right now, this immediate moment in time. But this class spoke about designing for a century, So it makes you examine your work more critically. It makes you think about the intended and unintended consequences of your work, right? So if I'm creating something, it's not only about the revenue or the money that I'm generating, right? What about the carbon footprint? What about how is it contributing to the pollution? How does it interact with other components in the ecosystem? So it really makes you critically think about design. It makes you think about whether you should be designing the way you are designing. And then finally, you have collab classes and academic electives. And collab classes, as the name suggests, they are collaboration classes where you're collaborating with people, again, from different disciplines with different backgrounds. And generally, this is done in tandem with an industry partner. So for instance, one collab class that I did was in collaboration with the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. And I'm somebody who's really interested with museum exhibit design. So it was a great opportunity to sort of practice that skill set and get to know people. So, collab classes, it's a great way to network. It's a great way to take, your theoretical knowledge and your theoretical understanding of design and apply it to a real world situation. And then finally, you have academic electives, and there are so many interesting, mind-bending electives that are offered in Parsons. So all in all, I just want to say, that you can see that the courses that are offered, there are a wide range of courses, and also it really encourages you to think creatively and to think independently. Now, these are just some skills that you will invariably learn once you are in the course, and skills that I learned and honed. So, to my left are design skills, right? So for instance, design thinking, human-centered design, researching, prototyping, testing, right? So through the projects, you do get to practice this a lot. So there'll be a lot of making that you'll be doing, a lot of testing that you will be doing. And, one of the things that it does is it really familiarizes yourself with fear, right? So for instance, if I just have to make one presentation in a month or in a year, right, that presentation becomes very daunting, right? You worry about that presentation, but suppose you have to present every single day, that fear just disappears. So, you do so much of designing, you do so much of thinking, you do so much of making that you just stop being afraid. You stop thinking whether it's good or bad. You stop thinking what people will think about it, and you just make, and it becomes fun. And then to my right are, the skills that you sort of pick up from the tech domain. You do learn how to code. You do learn about electronics. You do learn about 3D modeling. You do learn about AR and VR technologies, right? So you can see it's a combination of skills in the design and the tech field. But I want to talk about, skills that I learned that kind of fall in the intersection, right? And these are necessarily skills that you can put on a resume. These are necessarily skills that I will say will get you a job, but I think they will really, really help you in your career. So one of the first things that I learned was how to talk to non-designers. So design is a bubble. A lot of times when we're designing, we have created this own little space around ourselves. We speak the same language. We have the same jargon, right? So you start talking to somebody, you're talking about typefaces or kerning, and immediately the other person knows what you're talking about. But in DT, you're talking to people with completely different backgrounds. And so you learn to talk to them in a different language, right? Or even better, you sort of create a shared vocabulary. And, you understand the importance of explaining design decisions that might seem obvious to you, but are not so obvious to the other person. Another thing that I learned was how to present my work, right? So, for instance, an example that I can give you is that before going to Parsons, what I would do is I would always preface my work by, talking about all the things that were wrong with it or bad with it. So if I was presenting this to you, I would just say, oh, sorry, I didn't have the time to do this. Or, you can see that this is wrong or this is bad. But there I learned that it's very important that, you present your work and you don't bias the person who's critiquing it, right? So you present it and then you just stand back and you see what happens. You see what comes. The third is to not take feedback personally, and this is so important, right? A lot of times we get attached to our work, and if somebody tells us something about our design, we take it personally. We take it to be a comment on who we are as designers. We take it to be a comment on our skills, and that's just not true. And, this just comes with practice. This just comes with being brave and showing your work over and over and over again. The fourth thing that I learned was to look for opportunities. And again, this is something that's really important. So for instance, when I was in NIFT and I was sort of looking at jobs or internships or opportunities, I was just looking at opportunities within India, or I was just looking at opportunities, within a very narrow area, you can say, right? So this program taught me, that don't limit your opportunities. There are so many things that you can do, right? There are so many places that you can go to. So just be on the lookout, right? So look for design competitions, look for internships, look for fellowships, look for jobs. And if you are open, it's okay if you want to be in India, that's fine. But if you are open to sort of moving to other places in the world, there are a lot of things that could align with what you're looking for, right? So, if right now you're working and you feel that the work that you're doing doesn't really have a place, right? Or you can't find your fit, trust me, you haven't looked hard enough, right? You're looking in the wrong place because your work does belong. So look for opportunities, look for, places where your work fits in or where your work aligns. Parsons also taught me to sort of have the learner's mindset. And that's actually one of the most important things that I took away from this course. It was learning how to learn, right? So a lot of times, you will have a design challenge in front of you where you will want to do something, but you won't know how to do it. So a learner's mindset will help you in that situation, right? Knowing that, okay, I don't know this, but I will figure this out. And that just gives you so much confidence. And finally, critical thinking, just realizing that you have to critically examine every single thing that you're doing. And yeah, I think critical thinking is one of the most important skills that it's given me. Okay, now coming to and beyond, which is basically what comes after Parsons. Okay, so I graduated from Parsons in May 2019. And the next 3 months were basically this mad scramble to find a job. And, I will say that it is incredibly hard. There's no going around it, right? You will face a lot of rejection. It is going to be a very, very tedious process, but you can do it. When it comes to the matter of jobs, I will say that there is very limited support from the university. So this is in direct contrast to Indian universities. So for instance, I feel Indian universities train you for, the industry. So once you graduate, you have the skills that help you easily transition into the workplace. But that's actually not true abroad. And I felt that even for Parsons, it's an MFA degree, and it opens your mind in a lot of different ways. It teaches you a lot of different skills, but it doesn't exactly make you employable, right? And that's not even their goal. And so it's hard to take the skills that you've learned, to take the experiences, to take everything that you've gained from the program, and to sort of come back into the job search process, right? It can be frustrating too, because, sometimes when you're in the university, you're doing fun projects, you're exploring emerging tech. And then when you start looking for jobs, you see that, okay, there are just branding jobs available, or there are just graphic design jobs available. And you feel like you've moved beyond them, but then the industry hasn't. So that's another problem, that you can face. Then I will say, that while you are in school, do network, because connections matter, right? And so you never know, maybe somebody in your dorm, right? Or maybe somebody who's sitting next to you in class could be the person who gets you the next job. Not to saying that's the only reason you talk to them, but, just be open to having conversations, be open to getting to know people, put yourself out there. And I know that's hard, but it's very rewarding. It's incredibly rewarding, right? Build those connections organically, and trust me, things will work out. And finally, another thing that I'll tell you is, once you're in the program, do choose your classes wisely, because DT is a playground, right? They give you immense freedom. You can choose the projects you like. You can do whatever you want to do. But that can be dangerous if you don't have a clear idea of what it is that you want to do. So I will say, that if you do decide to go in for the program, the first year is a great year to explore and experiment and try different things. But at the end of the first year, just, sit down and think about what is it that you want to do next, right? So if you do want to do like a corporate job, right, then go to LinkedIn, see a job post, right? See what are the requirements, and start building or start tailoring your portfolio accordingly. If there are certain skills that are required of you that you don't yet have, start cultivating those skills, right? So be very strategic about how you go about it. Or another route is, if you want to go into research, or if you want to do something that's more niche or experimental, say if you want to do speculative design, then, reach out to faculty who's working on it, right? Maybe they have research projects that they can incorporate or integrate you into, right? Or maybe they will have opportunities, they will have people that they can connect you to. So I will say, that it is so important to not treat these 2 years of like masters as an escape, because ultimately you will be thrown back into the real world, right? Ultimately, you will have to search for jobs. Ultimately, you will have to earn a living for yourself. So, just examine your why. Why do you want to do this? And once you have the why, then I'm sure you can figure out the how. And finally, I'll just put my details on the screen, my email and my website. And I'll just say that, if any of you who are watching this right now have questions, if you want to reach out to me, ask me, more details about my experience, or if you want me to take a look at your portfolio, because I know it's useful to have like a second pair of eyes, please reach out to me. I would be more than happy to talk to any of you and, help you in any way that I can. And I mean, just to conclude, I would say that, like one advice that I can give you, and like one thing that I hope you take away from this is, don't self-censor, right? Like a lot of times we see an opportunity and we reject our own selves and we believe that, the opportunity is not meant for us. So we eliminate ourselves from the pool. So don't do that, give it your best shot. It doesn't matter if you're coming from a design field, a non-design field, give it your best shot. Do your research, right? Make a portfolio and apply. And let the university decide, right? Like once you've done your part, let the university decide if it's a right fit, right? Let them decide if you are the right candidate or if you are a good candidate for the university. But don't be the one who, decides that I'm not right for this, because a lot of times it's just the fear that's stopping us, and don't let that happen. And that's what I would say, just be informed, think about why you're doing it, and then just go for it and do it. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aakanksha. I think that was a very, very detailed session. You not only actually covered why exactly one should do a master's at Parsons, but why anyone should do a master's in general. So thanks a lot for that. I think I have only one question as a part of the Q&A session for today. I just want to ask you about, how exactly can a student who's still pursuing his or her B.Des make the right decision as to which masters might be the right fit for them? And I'm asking this question very specifically with the different themes that master's programs actually are on, especially after a design's undergraduate degree. For an example, if you could do an M.Des or if you could do an MIIPS. So how exactly do you decide that, okay, this is what I actually want to do for the rest of my life?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. And again, to me, it comes to doing the research, right? And, ideally, I will say that, for instance, if I want to apply for a master's program, I should you should have a year in hand, right? So if you want to apply for master's next year, right? So this means August 2022, you should start thinking about it from right now, right? And all of this time should be spent in getting to know more about the courses that are available, right? So as you said, again, there are a lot of options for somebody who wants to do a master's, right, after a B.Des. And so, you do need to research what are the colleges, what are the courses, what skills, does it introduce me to? And finally, you have to make sure that your master's program is a portal or a gateway into the career that you want beyond, right? So for instance, one of the reasons that I chose this program was because I think that, code is a very valuable tool for designers now. And it was one of the programs that helped me integrate code, that helped me integrate emerging tech with design. So you have to sort of, draw these direct relationships between your goals for what to do beyond your master's program and how the particular master's will help you achieve it. Right. And again, I will say that, even within a certain title, say within M.Des or within MFA, there are a wide range of programs offered. And those programs, they differ significantly from one college to another. So you can't sort of put a blanket statement, so there has to be a lot of methodical and deliberate thought that needs to go into which college, which course you choose.
Thank you for that, Aakanksha. And I think that not only brings me to the end of the Q&A, but also to the session itself. So I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you once again on behalf of Team Plant for actually taking the time out for this session. Trust me when I say that this is going to be very useful for students in the future who are planning to take this degree. So thanks again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember talking to you earlier today and just telling you that I wish I had this resource when I had started out. And, just to that, I would like to say that to all of you who have questions right now, or who are struggling, or who are confused, and you feel like you've driven yourself into a corner, remember, it's a very common feeling. A lot of us have felt this way at different points of time in our life, right? Where we don't know what to do. We don't know what the right step is. And so reach out to people, ask them the questions that you have in your mind, right? And trust me, ultimately it does work out, right? If it hasn't yet, it will eventually. So all the best to everybody who's watching this. And thank you again, Abhishek.
Thank you.